Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Thomasin PA2066. I'd like to do a video recording on COVID impact on to real estate in Malaysia. Let me begin. Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Thomasin PA2066. Today is 21st of July 2022. Topic to present this afternoon after my presentation on NAPIC figures this morning is COVID-19 and its effect on the real estate market in Malaysia for the last 4 years. We date back to 2019 and 2020, 2021, and now 2022. Let me begin. Right, pretty much popular when you hear people saying, well, I've been doing better than expected. It was a pandemic, a lot of uncertainty. I was thinking it will be doomsday. We could not make things meet. Like businesses were going to go down, but then I was surprised. It was better than expected. You actually hear this a lot from real estate negotiators. In fact, the developers are also smiling away. They say that although they suffer damages due to MCO, no construction work going on, and a lot of things got held up. But then the COVID bill and all those things came about. Government gave away a lot of stimulus packages, and therefore developers actually felt that it was not too bad. And then, in fact, there were some who were saying that they were selling more. So never before. So I made more money even. There are people saying they make more money during the COVID pandemic time, MCO time, than they were in a way expecting worse time to come, but it did not all expected at that time, 2019. So there are many who are showing their gratitude to the happening of the COVID-19. So thanks to coronavirus. But is this true? Is this true as you now came through 2019 until 2022? Now is July 2022. Is it true or not? Let us look back at the figures. Let us look at the figures and see for your own interpretation of the figures. So COVID impact in a general trend is well viewed as negative. Negative immediate impact. If you go worldwide search under topic of COVID and its effect on economy, then a lot of it will be negative, like facing hospitalization, people died, death threat gone up, a lot of time crisis happen, people don't have food to eat, and closure of businesses. A lot of businesses actually had a foreclosure, especially the tourism, travel related businesses, entertainment, nightlife type of businesses, all had to close down. So all these businesses sure affected the livelihood of a lot of people. And of course, a lot of time this immediate knee-jerk response will be the stock market crash. So stock market crash would indeed make a lot of people worry, and especially those big businesses where their stock price crash down. So there will be immediate loss in the sense financial market. So longer term of it, there will be unemployment, because all these businesses cannot operate. All these entertainment, travel related, type of business are held up. Countries by countries actually are shutting down all these activities. So therefore, unemployment happen, and in a way, livelihood is difficult. People are unable to pay their meals and what more to send mortgages. Of course, in the sense of mortgages, there were moratorium where banks are given out directive by the government not to make collection of their mortgage installment. So this gave a breathing space a bit for some who are actually facing tight budget of spending. A lot of uncertainties, and therefore you will see that movement control order came in because of the pandemic. We are worried about the viral spread. A lot of countries has clamped down on movement, and therefore no activities. So no spending means business cannot generate economy. There is no productivity. People cannot go to work, and therefore the whole uncertainty. Indeed, imposed a lot of strength to the economy, and definitely getting loan from the banks and getting finances done to buy property would always be a second place now, especially even you have problem of looking for food. Definitely the luxuries are put aside. So these are the immediate impact that people would feel from having a pandemic like COVID. But then on the other hand, interestingly, the impact on real estate in the terms of the money flow, stock market fell, but then the money from stock market will go to somewhere, right? So in US, in other countries where they have investors are moving away from the stock market, going into fixed assets like real estate. So money flowing back to the real estate, and there in the North America, they were actually experiencing the once in how many years, never before, a height of demand to buy real estate. So it's prudent response to a shock, a financial shock, that people take their money from financial market and invest into real estate. So this is the response that we hear from people who are, mostly from the Western country, especially in Northern America and Australia, where this flow of money, in fact, goes to the real estate market. So they also have an issue of housing supply. Some places where the housing supply had been slow for a while, that means they were experiencing low housing supply for the last few years, and now suddenly there will be more demand for the limited supply. And the reason is simply that the money coming into real estate market from the stock financial market, at the same time facing with the short supply of incoming housing, which are not able to meet up with the demand. So these are the reason that in North America, in Australia especially, the house prices have shot up so much, and in the fact that the listings are snatched up within a few even days, put up on sale. So these are situation of certain previous condition, pre-existing condition of the place in the region, like in the North America, in Australia, or some parts of Europe. But is it happening in Malaysia? Let us see later. So another part of it is that the commercial warehousing for logistic, especially when people are buying things online, this logistic warehousing services, in fact, suddenly escalated to never seen before, unimaginable demand for warehouse. So places warehousing, industrial buildings actually was in high demand during the COVID pandemic. Of course, the supply-demand issue has always been the real estate balancing act. So we look at it in a Malaysia setting in a short while. So let us see that COVID came in, and COVID affected us in certain way. COVID has given some boost to some industries, and hopefully I am not wrong saying that real estate some actually said it went with a good response from the COVID effect. But then I would not say it is entirely true, because if you look at the figure later, you will know that what I am referring to, the total market or the total value of our industry has actually been affected. So this is the graph where you can see on the top right hand side, from 2001 to 2021, yearly value transacted. So from 40 billion value to as high as 160 billion during the time of speculative selling, hot time, which is 2013, to COVID time, which is around 100 billion. So there was a dip, as I put an arrow, to COVID-19, and at the same time of subprime also 2008. The effect can be seen here in subprime, as I pointed. So in the subprime, if you look at the table, subprime was 18, contraction of the 8.3 lah, negative 8.3% based on year to year in the time for contraction for 2000, which is resulted from the 2019 to 2020 COVID pandemic, is about 16%. Now look at the 16%, it's not really that alarming if you look at the 16%, because compared to the earlier years during the depression, the 1998 Great Depression, the contraction was as much as 50%, 45, 37, 53%. So during the worst time in the last 25 to 30 years, the contraction actually was much higher than the COVID, so 47.6% at a year-to-year basis. From the quarter-to-quarter basis, some can be as high as 53%. So if you look back at the COVID impact for 2020, it was only 15.8%. Later, we will look at the quarter-to-quarter comparison. So this may be seen as a cushioning of 15.8% already been cushioned. So if you go into more detail later, I will show you. It actually some quarters were quite bad 15.8 was for the whole year. Right. Why do I do this analysis? So this reason is that I want to understand more of the COVID-19 pandemic impact onto the trend of real estate So it's a trend which means people are worried in the long term, or people are just held up because they cannot go out and buy property. So it's just like today, you cannot go out and do your shopping, but you would have kept this shopping craving, the shopping of your craving item by delaying it. So in fact, it's just queuing up. By the time it's open up, then you just rush out and buy. Or is it because concern of the pandemic, a lot of people would not be thinking of buying houses forever? So these are the interesting trend to look at. So this will affect the lifeline of estate agents, because estate agents make a living out of the transacted value of the property. So how much is this value affected by COVID-19 pandemic? How much is it taking away from the actual value which is supposed to be transacted? So let us look at 2021 whole year value transacted, which is 144.87 billion. So how much is affected from this 144, right? So let's say we go back to 2020 from the quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see volume and value. So the middle one here is actually the number of transaction, the impact. You can see less, negative 43.8% contraction on the numbers of transaction, almost half gone. So if you see the same period, 42.61, this one is 75.78. So actually half transacted value is shown here, also 41% contraction. So 41% contracted. So it means to say, if last year same time you did 100 ringgit, this year you only do 60 something. So it's like you have lost 40%, 40% gone. So the worst time is 40%, but the good times is not bad Some of it is not affected, some even gain. So if you look at the worst, was 41.5% loss of value. However, the general idea is that the total loss, if you look at per year to year, is 15.8. But then the amount lost for the first half, January to June. So first half, because we had the COVID quite bad during the April or May, during that time. So the shock actually happened around maybe February to March, when the few first cases was diagnosed, and then the whole lot came about like a wildfire in April, May, and June. So that was the worst hit during the time where everyone stay at home, they not go out. So during this time, the volume reduced by almost 28%. The value transacted reduced by 31.5%. So year on year is less, but then if you look at the critical timing, it's actually much worse. And the worst time was April to June. April to June was the worst. So general changes in loss of value is around nearly 15.8 year to year. So anyway, now we move on. How much is that? at the 15.8% less. We take the whole year of the year before and then try to see what is the likely loss, intended loss caused by COVID. So you look at the chart, which I have just made it into bar. So this is a bar chart, and coming to 2019 and 2020, there is a loss of this amount. So we try to ascertain the blue bar here. How much is this? So let's say we take 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021 and make a guess. A guess, probably average. If you really draw a line here, the average yearly value should be around 141.61, roughly about 22.5 billion loss. So I put it as a rough guesstimate of 20 billion loss. So pandemic caused by COVID-19 has impacted the real estate around 20 billion ringgit Malaysia. So this amount of business was lost. So this I want to substantiate with a finding from this reported journal on the effect of movement control order for various population, the mobility phases during COVID-19 in Malaysia. So this is a quite interesting one because it measured the mobility during this period of various MCO. Let me explain with the chart. So now let's say we imagine everyone knows that there is a bus coming, and you queue up to board the bus. And this bus has a timetable to arrive. So everyone is queuing. Now, if this is the scenario of buying property or property transaction, compare to a scenario subsequent slide. So here is MCO. There is no buses or no bus service. So everybody is like queuing up at the bus stand, doing nothing. You cannot get onto the bus. So in analogy, you cannot buy a property during this period of time, although you have an intention to buy. So this having intention to buy and there is no property for you to buy because you cannot go out is delayed in that sense for you to buy a property. So in the sense that although there is a transaction by right, but then it did not materialize, it will materialize in the future. So if this is the same amount of people who need to buy and then only buy it at a later time, then the recovery phase will come back. So there will be soon recovery. So the value that has really impacted by COVID because of the MCO I put up in the chart here, as you can see, the trend of COVID-19 cases in Malaysia in the small spike, the color spike, black color one, but then the different shades of color denotes the type of MCO. So as you can see, during March 15 onwards, the MCO was implemented, and then conditional MCO, and then recovery MCO. So during this phase of time, which is until almost October 2020, you can quite safely say the initial part of it, in fact, no movement at all. So people cannot go to buy even certain essential item at that time because the essential item was very strict. So only food and certain medical supply. So therefore, definitely there cannot be any buying of property. So because of that, there was a drop in value, 31.5%, a drop in the volume of 27.9% versus the same period last year. So this could be also for the fact that there was no record, for the reason that, when the departments, they receive all these valuation requirement, they did not go to work, so they did not produce the valuation report, they did not operate the stamp duty collection, and therefore there was no activity recorded. So during this time, 30% volume drop or 30% value drop. But you compare it to the subsequent phase, that is from July to December year 2020, we were on to recovery MCO and the extended CMCO. The value dropped only 1% and the volume actually increased. So this volume increase could be, people got onto the bus, activity are coming back, activity of valuation, activity of stamp duty payment actually restarted, government officers resume office, and therefore there will be backlog, there will be more things to do, because you have backlog of items to files to look at and to process. So this is like a bus, suddenly no bus at the bus stand, people queue up at the bus stand, and the next bus were to come, the next part will be very heavily loaded. A lot of people will try to squeeze onto the bus. So there is a increase in volume and there should be increase in value. So this is for the period of 2020, from the first half of 2020 versus the second half of 2020. And if you can see the percentage difference on more BDT components, so MCO time compared to pre-MCO, definitely everything goes down, no movement. So retail and recreation down, grocery and pharmacy also down, parks definitely down, no jogging, transit also down because no movement, cannot go out. Workplace of course down, so a lot of people probably don't go to work, or only certain people go to work, and therefore there is a MCO, the effect of MCO on movement. The conditional MCO, you can see already improved much less, and of course the recovery MCO, certain types of movement are already back to normal, right? And the extended CMCO and the MCO2 as well as overall. So as we know, the conditional MCO and recovery MCO, people are already going back to their workstation. So this is a graph that says case trends and the average mortality percentage changes. So when it drops, it means that people are worried, people don't go out. So it spikes up, means people start going out. So as you can see, general trend is people are going out already after roughly June. So as you can see, yes, the sales, the transaction numbers are also recovered in the second half of 2020. Right, this is a percentage difference of mobility component of MCO phases with the previous phase, which means you are comparing CMCO to a previous phase of MCO. So CMCO compared to MCO, sure you have more mobility than the MCO. So here is increasing number, but then when they extend it, because they face problem of second wave and a third wave, so they re-emphasize on the MCO, there was some effect there was some effect because they compared to the previous one. So actually there was a reduced movement from the RMCO. Here there will be a reduced movement of the compared to the extended CMCO. The general idea is when there is less movement, you will expect that business activities will drop, and we do not expect real estate business to recover at that time. So conclusion is that recent report on NAPIC data, I have worked on it and showed to you now that how much is COVID-19 in fact affected during the time 2020, the year 2020, especially the first half of the year. So about 20 million of value transaction actually lost due to no activity, and this no activity was due to COVID. Of course, the worry of contagious COVID causing hospitalization and death. So general feeling on it is that it's only year to year at around 15.8% drop in the value. However, the zooming in the first half of 2020, you were expecting about 31.5% drop in value, and worst was during time of April to June, which we had a drop of 41.5%. So this 41.5%, if you compare to the Great Depression time, the 1998 Great Depression, it was not as bad. The time of Great Depression, it was even worse, up to negative 50% during that time. So in fact, COVID-19, although it had a toll on the real estate market, but then the worst was actually during 1998, 1999. So the recovery phase of second half 2020, you can see that there is improvement, and the first half of 2021, year on year, also showed the 21.7% improvement. So on the year 2022 now, we are already on the recovery phase. So the initial time when you recover, it probably is the yet to process. So some of these files are still yet to be processed. Therefore, you can see a jam up. So the figure looks extra good during the initial phase. But general time over, you will see a plateauing. So you will expect a bit of normalizing after a few months. Right, just before I end this presentation, I want to recap the earlier discussion point whereby during COVID pandemic, some places like Western countries, especially North America and Australia, they actually saw a trend of up market. That means they were having boom on real estate market where people feeding frenzy, as I say. Why does that not occur in our region in Malaysia? Probably there are a few reasons I can think of, but I have no figures to show. If you go back to the earlier presentation of NAPIC figures, you can see that in Malaysia we already had surplus of supply. Over a period of a few years, from as early as 2015, 2016, we already had a slowdown, but yet they were already overhang. A lot of overhang had been around for quite some years, and in certain aspect, these supplies did not meet the probably purchasing budget of the population that requires shelter. And in our country, a lot of time we buy property rather than in the Western country, they actually rent property. So pandemic could have an impact on their living, that they would have more time in their house. They prefer now that they have more times in the house to buy their own and not home, and therefore decorate their own uniqueness of their shelter, their house, rather than in Malaysia where everyone in their life choose to own a shelter, own a house. So that may be a cultural difference between the different types of population. I guess another reason is when the US side, or in fact the Western country, where they affected the financial market, the money goes into industry and real estate, whereby in our country when the money flows, it seems that the money flows out of the country. A lot of time the foreign fund and the big capital investors are not Malaysian, or sometimes they are Malaysian but they don't choose to invest in Malaysia. The disparity of wealth compared to in the category of purchasing power families, the purchasing power families in Malaysia mostly requires housing, but not investing in stock market. So maybe in their proportion, they have a lot of people who can afford housing and yet not buying house, but put their money in stock market. When the stock market suffers some losses, they will pull out and instead now zoom into buying properties for their own stay. Roughly, that is the feeling that I have. Indeed, some places in the US, they were wave of people going back to their hometown during these pandemic years, where some of them want to improve their lifestyle, living in the suburb, and at the same time work from home. So therefore they go back to their hometown and buy up property. So some of these townships are smaller townships in the US, and the property there was snatched away, in fact, just overnight. So these are a few reasons that I could think of. But in Malaysia, it is not such a case whereby people on the street would come back from in the sense of from Singapore and buys up houses in Sarawak or in Kota Kinabalu or in certain place of Pahang or Terengganu, just because they want to stay and work from home. So these are not likely our scenario locally. So this is my feeling on this discussion. Thank you very much. I am Thomas Sim, PA2066. This is my mobile number. I have a few websites which I have designed to help practitioners in the field. I am doing findway.info, which is a geo-linking advertising website. estateagentexam.com is for the study of the diploma in estate agency examination by the board. My Real Property Online is my website for all my videos and also some listings. Contract2you.com is a research area that I am doing for comparative index on property ranking. Because realestate.fund is a easy to use retail listing platform for real estate practitioner. Thank you so much.